stitch encased.
We're busting ours to kick yours.
Fun to watch.
Minus 15.
Respect all, fear none.
Into the upper deck.
Intensity is not a curfew.
Oh, mercy.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon and welcome into MASN All Access. I'm your host, Paul Mancano. Thank you so much for tuning in. We hope that from wherever you're joining us, you're safe, you're healthy, and you're with your family. Well, I'm sure many of you have found new ways to occupy your time at home during this pandemic. Me, I've taken up chess, and I'm still terrible at it, but Orioles pitcher Evan Phillips and his fiancé Elizabeth DeVita have found a much better way to use their time by making masks. Now, these are sewn and designed by Evan and Elizabeth and sent to family, friends, and even local businesses. Teammates Paul Fry and Cody Carroll have modeled some of these masks. It's truly an awesome project. And now we are joined by Evan and Elizabeth, who join us via Zoom from Sarasota, Florida. Guys, thanks so much for hopping on here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you
Hey,
for
Paul, how's it
having
going?
us.
So I got to get the baseball stuff out of the way first. Evan, you had the elbow issue earlier in spring training. That feels like forever ago, but how are you doing? How are you feeling coming back from that?
Things are going really well. My rehab has definitely been an interesting process, since the crisis has, begun. And I've been able to, do everything I can with the resources that we have down here. And I'm feeling great. My throwing is 2 or 3 weeks in now, and things are feeling really good and I'm feeling strong. So hopefully whenever the season kicks back up, I'll be ready to go.
Nice. And you guys are staying down in Sarasota. You've made a nice home down there. How has it been staying? Obviously, you can't get too much work in in terms of the Orioles facility, but how has it been down in the city of Sarasota during this hiatus?
Oh, I mean, I think it's, it's been interesting. I think kind of where you are, it's a little interesting, but in terms of Evan's rehab and recovery, this made the most sense for us.
Right.
Again, it's a little tricky not being able to go into the facility, of course, but having at least access to the trainers and just information. And, there's a lot of unknowns. So staying down here made the most sense. But it's been interesting. Last month was really, I guess interesting is the only word I can think of right now.
A little trying, just living with roommates and in a bigger house, just accommodating 3 different families really is what we were trying to do. We were trying to all. The
only place that you were going was, if we went anywhere, was the grocery store. And I think that was kind of the case for everyone. So making that adjustment. But I think, we've been fortunate to be down in Sarasota to have a lot of open space and fresh air that has been a blessing for us.
Absolutely.
Nice. So let's talk about the masks because they are awesome looking. How did it come about that you guys started to make these masks and really mass produce them? Because you now said you have dozens of different styles, ranging from team logos to patterns. But how did this come about?
So interestingly enough, I don't really know how it started. I kind of always, no matter where I'm living, have some type of craft box. I just always have something, and I had some random fabric in there. I don't know if it was on Twitter or the news, but I did see somewhere that people were needing homemade masks. And I was like, wait a minute, I feel like I packed fabric recently, found it. Evan can attest to this. I was gluing, hand sewing. I was trying everything possible. Those were kind of a hot mess. The hand sewing just took a very long time, but I wasn't giving up. So I just kind of kept doing it. Maybe 3 masks a day at most. And then Evan was at physical therapy one day. And like we mentioned earlier, we weren't going out last month at all. So he said, do you need anything while I'm out? And I said, yep, a sewing machine. Kind of kidding, but kind of not. And then he sent me a screenshot of a sewing shop that he found on Google Maps.
I just found it, gave him a call and said, hey, we need something very simple, easy to set up because neither of us have ever operated a sewing machine before. And we bought it for a decent price. He understood what we were trying to do. And
then Evan spent about 3.5 hours setting it up. And he actually is the one that taught me how to use it.
Yeah, so I'm the real...
he hasn't made
I haven't used it. I haven't made a mask, but I did set it up and everything. And it's been a team effort, that's for sure.
But that sort of is how it fell together. So I wish I could say like I'm an experienced veteran sewer and I've had a sewing machine and this and that, but that's not the case. But when quarantine did start, the lockdown began, I told him that I was got to come out of it with some new skill. I kind of thought I'd brush up on my Spanish or something like that, but no, I learned how to sew.
Yeah.
So.
Well, they have looked awesome. I certainly can't sew, so I mean, my mom could probably teach me a thing or two on that, but I mean, the learning curve has been going very quickly for you guys because you guys are really pumping these out here. Where do you get the cloth for these things? Because a lot of them look like specialized. Obviously, the Orioles ones, Auburn, which would be Elizabeth, your alma mater. But where do you get the cloth for these masks?
So that has evolved. It started with Joann Fabrics, and actually, when I kind of realized, oh, I can kind of do some cool different ones, that was when this all began. I just happened to find that a local Joann Fabric had curbside pickup and had Orioles fabric in stock. So I was all about it. We got it real quick, very quickly, I guess I should say. But from there, it was a lot of Joann pickups. And then I started to discover this whole world of fabric online. And I was, blown away. The Auburn fabric, any team fabric, really, beyond the Orioles one. And then any type of like specialty fabric. And then what happened was there were certain patterns. So I am selling them online as well to fund the donations, and certain fabrics were selling really quickly. And so I needed to get more of the fabric. And so I kind of had to hunt them down, whether it be on Etsy or wherever. So it really kind of evolved, but it's kind of cool because there are some local mom and pop quilt shops. One was in Tennessee. That's where I found the Auburn fabric. But really, there's been some local ones here that we found. Yeah. So it's been really cool to kind of see. And I mean, these places are telling me that they're getting 10 to 20 times more daily orders than they're used to. So there's definitely a little backlog with that. But I don't know, it's kind of fun. I told him the other day, I've got to kind of slow down because it's fun to find the different fabrics.
Yeah, Paul, I never thought I'd ever walk into a Joann Fabric. Ever. And they started to open stores up recently a little bit, so if you go in there and do the social distancing, you can go in and find your fabrics. But never once did I think I'd even be curbside pickup at a Joann Fabric. So it's been interesting. But I'm there frequently, and I see the same people. I think I get their names down too by now. So it's been a lot of fun, doing this. And when Elizabeth mentioned, the beginning of the quarantine and this crisis, we did not expect this. This is not how we felt, our early 2020 was gonna start. So it's been a heck of a ride, and we're glad we can help people any way we can.
I think the biggest thing too is once I realized that I could teach myself how to do this, we could kind of have some fun with it. Realizing that there was at least something we could do to make a difference. Even certain ones that I've sold on Etsy. Sometimes there are nurses, there are people who message me with pictures. I've gotten emails of people wearing them, and someone told me that getting that package in their mailbox brightened their entire week. And it's, a small gesture, but, we feel, I don't want to say we feel helpless, but it's a really hard situation. Nobody knows how to navigate this. So being able to do something to help people has definitely been something that's really fulfilling for us.
And you've gotten some help from some fellow Orioles as well, some of your roommates, in terms of modeling some of those masks. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the guys were interested in having masks for themselves, so I made them some. And then when I found the Orioles fabric, that kind of went a different direction. And I just was like, hey, can I take some pictures of you guys wearing them? That was on our deck, so that wasn't in an area where they really, would be in public wearing them. But they do own these masks, and they have them now, so hopefully they're wearing them when they're out in public.
Nice. And you mentioned not having any experience in terms of sewing before this. Had you had any experience collaborating on a project together?
Not really.
That's a great question.
We had just completed a puzzle not too long before this started.
Yeah.
And it was a 1,000-piece puzzle.
That's a project. That's a legit project.
Season. And you're right. Very legit.
Honestly, that one was way more trying than this.
Yeah, that was more difficult than this process. That's for sure. We've got a good system down.
Fun. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time here, and thank you guys for the work that you guys are doing behind the scenes to help people out and to really brighten people's day. So we really appreciate it.
Of course.
Thanks for having us, Paul.
Thank you so much.
Evan and Elizabeth joining us here on MASN All Access. We've got two exciting young pitchers for our 20 in 20s today, highlighting 20 players in the Orioles system to keep your eye on in 2020 and beyond. Let's start with Blaine Knight. Blaine Knight is not used to losing.
That's been the biggest adjustment, is just don't panic, just, get the ball back, go back to executing your style.
The righty took a loss in just one of his 23 starts in 2018 between college and low A ball. So Knight's 12 losses at high A Frederick were certainly out of character.
It's always good to win games, and it's a good confidence booster to win games, but now it's more about let's develop, let's get our stuff where it's at. If I'm happy with how my outing went, regardless of what the score is, I did my job that day, I got better.
The former College World Series runner-up is just 23.
I feel like I'm more back in the college area again as far as their approaches and stuff and how it was in the middle of SEC play.
A full season at high A could help Knight get his feet back under him.
Even though my outings have been whatever, my stuff still plays. Go out, trust my stuff, and trust the locations I'm supposed to throw to, and it's going to be okay.
Here are Knight's cumulative stats from 2019. 5 outstanding games in Delmarva before struggling a bit in Frederick. A combined .481 ERA, 89 strikeouts to 43 walks, a 1.296 whip. He'll almost definitely get another shot in Frederick when baseball resumes. Next up is a standout from the Bowie Bay Sox, Alexander Wells. The only thing better than Alex Wells' command is his accent.
I like a quick game, work quick, keep the guys off balance for the hitters to come in and score some runs.
The Australian native has been one of the best stories in the Orioles system since he signed as an international free agent in 2015.
That's really cool, been up to New York a couple times, a place which I never thought I would ever get to see.
2019 brought Wells 24 starts and a sub-3 ERA.
I've never been a big velocity guy, so the command has to be there. That's one thing I take pride in.
Another season like that, and Wells could soon join a rather short list of Aussie players in MLB. There are just 2 active Australian-born players in the majors right now, Liam Hendriks and Lewis Thorpe, both of them pitchers. But Alexander Wells could become the third if he climbs the organizational ladder. He made 24 starts in Bowie in 2019, a .295 ERA, 105 strikeouts. That comes out to about 6.9 Ks per 9. Not a particularly high number, but he made up for it by walking just 24 batters all season. And he followed up his season in AA with 9 stellar appearances in the Arizona Fall League. Well, the Orioles organization has undergone massive changes since Mike Elias took over a year and a half ago. Revitalization efforts all across the organization, including the Orioles Dominican operations. Felipe Alou Jr. is the director of the Orioles Dominican Academy. Back in February, I had a chance to catch up with him and discuss some of those changes. We're at the Buck O'Neill Complex, and we're here with Felipe Alou Jr., who is the director of the Orioles Dominican Academy. Felipe, thanks so much for joining us here on MASN All Access.
Thank you. I'm glad being with you. Thanks for having me.
So we got to start with your family because you obviously come from a very important baseball family. Let's go back to your father, who was the first Dominican player to play regularly in the big leagues. What does it mean to carry on the Alou name, especially considering you're Felipe Alou Jr., named after your father?
First of all, it's a blessing to carry our family name. I do it proudly, but also I understand the weight of it because of what they done, what my dad did. I know he played in an area where those guys have to really push it back there, and he lay out the way for so many Dominicans. And then, my brother Moises, and now my brother Luis. So yeah, it's a big weight on your shoulders, you can say, but also you carry it so proudly.
I'm glad you mentioned your brother Luis. Of course, you were in New York for his introductory press conference as the new manager of the New York Mets. What was it like to see your brother named the new manager of the Mets?
Pretty surreal. Going back to our years where we were kids, playing around the house and playing, games and watching TV. And knowing what he's done throughout his minor league career as a manager, knowing that he paid his dues, like he developed as if he was a player, and getting this big opportunity now, it's pretty surreal. I know he's pretty excited. We all are as a family. My dad, he thinks he's managing again. He's always on the phone with him and all that stuff. And he lives in Florida, and he makes sure he spends time with them. But definitely pretty surreal.
And of course, your dad, as you mentioned, was a manager as well. Why do you think this family has been attracted to managing as well as playing?
You know, my dad played baseball for so many years, and back then, when he ended up his playing career and went back home, he was like, oof, I probably need a job. You know, I had kids. And
Yeah.
Him and a few former players that started what they're called now the Dominican Summer League, which it was going from country to country inside the Dominican. That's how he started managing. He started managing those teams and playing a little bit, and got the opportunity to do winter ball and then do the minor leagues, and here we are.
How important do you think it is to have that Dominican Summer League, which now has exploded? And of course, we're going to get into your work with the two Orioles teams, but the fact that there is a presence there and it is so strong now and it is connected with the major leagues, how important is the DSL?
Very important. I don't need to tell anybody, but over the years, how many good Dominican players and Latin players have, come to play baseball in the States, not only in the big league, and to have a league that operates year round, and for us with the commitment that we're doing now, is huge, man.
Two teams, about 35 players on each roster. You manage one of those. How has the Orioles' presence in the Dominican changed since Mike Elias has taken over within the past year?
360-degree change, no doubt about it. Last year, when we went back to having two teams, I know the deadline was a little tight, but we had the resources and we had the people, Mike and Kobe Perez, to make it happen. They did their job, per se, to bring in the best talent available at the time and put the best people to go get that talent, and it showed on the field. We fill up two teams in a short period of time with good young talent, a whole bunch of 16, 17, 18-year-old kids that I would say 20, 30, 40% of those kids are going to be here this summer. So which is a huge step forward in our organization.
And these kids are 17, 18 years old. How important is it to develop them at that age? Because a lot of their talents are pretty raw at that point, but it's your job and the job of others like you to develop those talents.
These kids, they live home before 16 years old, but sometimes they're helped by these Buscones down there, so they might left their houses at 14. Or you have to even out between, these kids still learning how to play baseball, but he left home at a young age, so you got to be a parent too. And teaching these kids the everyday grind to become a young, successful man, not only a ball player, but a man. It's definitely a grind for us as well as coaches. I mean, because raw talent, perfect.
Yeah.
You want that. You want a raw, talented 16-year-old kid, but you got to understand too that sometimes this kid, they didn't got the education that you would want a 16-year-old kid to have, and it's not their fault. It's just, they're trying to follow this dream. That's a huge thing in the Dominican because now you can provide to your family.
How much joy would you say that you get when you were able to get a kid to not only understand the fundamentals of baseball, but understand the fundamentals of putting in the work to become successful?
Believe me, it's like if a kid of yours is just starting how to read.
Yeah.
It's the way it is. Because you get these kids so young, and like you said, so raw and so open-minded. They want to hear from you 24/7. They want to be around you. They'll text you. I had kids text me at night during the summer last year. Hey, how you doing? Hey, I think I'm doing. Thank you for everything, which is pretty cool. You treat them like your own. That's the way it is. But being able to watch them grow and watch them, develop and watch them learn every step of the way is a feeling.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to stop by on an early morning here at Buck O'Neill Complex. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Beautiful morning.
Felipe Alou Jr. joining us here on a beautiful morning here in Sarasota, Florida. That's it for MASN All Access today. We've got a podcast coming out tomorrow with Ben McDonald and Steve Molesky, so stay tuned for that. Thanks, as always, to Hannah Broder and Bobby Blanco behind the scenes. Remember, stay home, stay healthy, stay safe. There's only one way we're getting through this, and that is together. We'll see you later.